Imagine this. It's 2035, a college student is flipping through an econ textbook, and there's a single chapter that makes them pause. It's titled, Tariffs, the Hidden Tax of 2025. The chapter doesn't talk about income taxes or sales taxes or anything that went through Congress. Instead, it tells a story about how America quietly taxed itself into economic turmoil without a single vote being cast. And the author writes that it all began with a stroke of a pen. At the time, people were told it was about standing up to China, protecting jobs, bringing back manufacturing to America. But what families actually felt was something entirely different. Grocery bills climbed, cars cost thousands more, and businesses struggling to keep their doors open. And when economists look back, they said, we should have seen it coming. Because the truth is, tariffs aren't paid by foreign governments. They're paid right here by American importers, passed straight down the line until they land in your shopping cart, your closet, your kitchen table. It's the oldest trick in the book, a tax that nobody voted for, hiding in plain sight. Now here's the part that doesn't make it into the headlines. In America, taxes are supposed to be debated. Congress drafts them, committees fight over them, lobbyists swarm the halls, and eventually, like it or not, the people's representatives vote. I mean, that's how it usually works with new taxes. But tariffs are different. They bypass that entire process. That's because of powers granted decades ago. A president can raise tariffs almost unilaterally. No hearings, no floor debates, no roll call votes, just an executive order. And in early 2025, that's exactly what happened. With a stroke of a pen, President Trump rewrote the price of nearly everything Americans buy, from raw materials like steel, copper, aluminum, to finished products like cars, clothing, and electronics. And here's where the story takes its twist. Those tariffs were never paid by foreign governments. Importers at the ports wrote the checks. Retailers then had to adjust their prices. And when families filled a shopping cart full of groceries, bought a pair of shoes, or checked out online, that's when the extra tax hit. It was the perfect illusion, a tax hike that didn't look or feel like one, but in reality, it was the biggest hidden tax increase in modern American history. And the problem? The hidden tax hit just as the economy was already fragile. We had slowing growth, sticky inflation, families stretched thin. It was like putting a slow leak in the economy's tire. At first you didn't notice, but one day the tires are flat. Now, let's step out of the headlines and into the real world. Picture a family in Ohio. Mom's at the grocery store trying to stretch $200 into a week's worth of meals. She notices apples cost more, bread is up, even the price of chicken. She sighs, pays the bill, and presses on. She doesn't realize it, but she just paid the tariff. Or take a young couple in Texas shopping for a new car. The SUV they have their eye on now cost nearly $5,000 more than last year. Not because the automaker got greedy, but because tariffs raised the price of nearly every imported part that went into building it. And the small business owner, they import fabric for their shop or machine parts for their business. The tariff makes their costs jump overnight. They can't raise their prices without losing customers, so they eat the loss until they can't anymore. Some cut staff, others shut down entirely. And here's the kicker. Washington gets to brag about billions in new tariff revenue flowing into the treasury. But they don't say where that money's coming from. It doesn't come from China or Canada or Mexico. It comes from you, from the checkout line, the car lot, the small business invoice. Tariffs aren't some abstract policy tool. They're a tax hidden in plain sight, woven right into the price tags of everyday life. And like every tax, it hits the working and middle class the hardest. And here's the cruel irony. The harder people work to keep up, the more this hidden tax takes from them. Think about it. But here's the part we often forget. Tariffs don't happen in a vacuum. Every action sparks a reaction. And when America taxes foreign imports, the rest of the world doesn't just sit back and watch, they hit back with their own tariffs. Think about the farmers in Iowa who spent decades building trust with overseas buyers. Suddenly, those buyers are gone because tariffs on American soybeans and corn makes them too expensive. Orders vanish, contracts dry up, families who've worked the same piece of land for generations are left with unsold crops. The bourbon distillers in Kentucky watched in horror as Europe threatened a 50% retaliatory tariff on their bottles. Canadian farmers and manufacturers woke up to a 25% tariff overnight, hitting industries from steel to dairy and even US-made cars. And it doesn't stop there. Manufacturers, machinery makers, tech companies all find themselves locked out of global markets as retaliation spreads. We've seen this movie before. In the 1930s, the Smoot-Hawley Tariffs triggered a wave of retaliation that cut world trade by 2/3. It deepened a recession into the Great Depression. And here we are again in 2025, replaying the same pattern. Every retaliatory tariff isn't just a political move. It's another door slammed shut for American workers, farmers, and small businesses. And the cruel twist? They didn't ask for this fight. They didn't vote for it, but they're the ones paying the price. Up until now, we've talked about the price tag on groceries, cars, and businesses, but tariffs don't stop at the checkout counter. The ripple effects spread through the entire economy, and eventually they reach the US dollar itself. Here's how it plays out. Businesses pay more for imported materials. That means less money for hiring, investing, and expanding. Consumers feel the pinch, so they spend less. Sales slow down, shops close their doors. Economists say each round of tariffs can shave 0.2 to 0.4% off GDP growth. Stack those up, and you're staring at stagflation, or worse, an economic contraction. And then comes the dollar. For 70 years, the US dollar has been the world's reserve currency, the currency other nations trust more than any other. That trust is America's superpower. It allows us to borrow cheaply and fund everything from defense to Social Security and maintaining global influence. But what happens when tariffs, retaliation, and rising debt make the world question that trust? Rivals like China and Russia have been waiting for this very moment. BRICS nations are openly discussing alternatives to the dollar. And when America taxes itself into slower growth while its rivals make new deals, confidence in the dollar weakens, and we're already seeing that. On top of that, tariffs give inflation a second wind. Prices rise on imports, retaliation shrinks supply, and the result? Sticky inflation that doesn't go away no matter how hard the Federal Reserve tries. For everyday Americans, that means the pain shows up twice, once at the register and again in a weaker economy. And this part gets me the most because tariffs, unlike any other tax you pay, you never got to vote on them. Think about it. Most taxes, like income, sales, property, they go through some sort of public process. Congress or state legislatures debate them, city councils or school boards vote on them, and at the very least, your elected representatives are involved. But tariffs, they skip all that. With the stroke of a pen, one person can raise the cost of living for millions of Americans. No hearings, no debates, no accountability. And here's the danger. It sets a precedent. If one president can use tariffs this way, then any future president, Republican or Democrat, could do the same thing. One signature and billions quietly move out of our wallets into the government coffers. It's a tax without the name, a tax without the vote, a tax that slips through the cracks of democracy, in my opinion. And history tells us something important here. Whenever power moves quietly, without checks and balances, it almost always comes at the expense of the people. History doesn't always repeat itself, but it often rhymes. In the 1930s, the Smoot-Hawley tariffs were sold as protection for American farmers. But instead, it choked off global trade, sparked retaliation, and turned a downturn into the Great Depression. Millions lost jobs, banks collapsed, families stood in breadlines, and now here in 2025, we're watching the same story unfold, only this time faster, bigger, and an economy far more interconnected. So the next time you hear a politician boast about tariffs bringing in billions for America, remember those billions aren't coming from China or Europe. They're coming from you, from your grocery bill, your clothes, your gas tank. That's the hidden tax. And history already warned us what happens when we go down this road. What do you think? Are tariffs the strong medicine America needs, or are we walking straight into another unavoidable disaster? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to know about how Americans were robbed of 3,600 tons of gold, then you need to watch this video next. Thank you so much for watching, and bye for now.